Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Nature Folklore Sessions. It's 16th of May, 2021. Well, thank you all here for joining me on our weekly time for exploring nature-centered folklore, connecting this to your favorite sanctuary space, and expressing your inspired visions from your sanctuary space through your poetry, writing, arts, crafts, performance, and problem solving. Now, this afternoon is the first day of Biodiversity Week in Ireland. So the theme today is biodiversity in the soil and our natural connection to it and the therapy it gives us. We've got a lot of content for today, a couple of fantastic live guests. Ahmed's just been on and said hello, so we got him from India again after his wonderful poetry. He's going to be doing something different today, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so the guest today, we've got Rodrigo Celt Esteva. Very interesting. I've got a picture of him somewhere, if I can throw that up for you. He's actually of the Dancing Monks, and the picture's not coming up. Come on, picture. There we go. There he is. He's one of the Dancing Monks out in the Bay Area. He's actually from Mexico himself. Fantastic. But he's not going to be doing Dancing Monk stuff for us today. He's going to demonstrate his garden that's focused on microgreens. And then we've got, coming back, as I was saying, we got the fabulous return of the very interesting Ahmed Dahir Basha. I hope I got it right again. And he's going to be talking about his amazing work of coaching poor people into abundant organic farming. So that's going to be exciting stuff. And these Nature Folklore Sessions, as I remind you, the Karakuri Labyrinth Gardens here, they come to us all thanks to your support, Patreon subscribers, and some of you subscribers, you watch live here every week. So I'm really grateful for your continued support, because without that support, I may not be here this afternoon hosting this. Now, I trust you're hearing me okay. Last couple of weeks, we've had a few sound problems. So if you're hearing okay, give the A. Yes, I'm hearing you okay. But I think let's see who's joining us early today. Because interestingly, it's a very sunny time out, which is very embarrassing. I should be outside. And the forecast was for showers. In fact, there's forecast of heavy showers while I'm on the air within this hour, but it's beautiful out there now. And of course, last year we were outside nearly every Sunday, and this year it's hard to find a time to be outside. And Claire is on board. Claire is delighted that you're here too. Elizabeth Flynn, good afternoon from County Wexford. Lovely that you're on. Oh, we got lots of Irish people on today. We got Marcella here, who's fantastic. We got a whole Irish audience at the moment, but no doubt the regular USA people will be on very shortly and catch up with what's going on here. As I say, there's a lot of content today. We're going to be running a bit over time, especially with these two fabulous guests that we got coming up. But today, it's not just about the diversity in this wonderful earth, which I haven't got many photos up today, so I'm going to try and, the few photos I've got up, I'm going to try and kind of catch up with you today. As I say, this is something I want to show you. It's a booklet that was out last year. I didn't register this episode with the biodiversity.ie, but they had a lovely book outside that they issued last year, and you could get it free. I don't know if they've got copies in the heritage offices in your county, but later on I'm going to give you a link of where you could get the PDF, and this is going to be handy for people overseas that are tuning into this. But as I say, today it's not just about biodiversity of the earth. It's about how we are part of it all. Because during this COVID times, it seems that most people have been working with their gardens. Many lawns have been dug up and raised beds erected, compost bins, everything's been going on. And people started, oh, look at that, there's a man chewing up his lawn there, and there's someone who had sense to just put some raised beds, virtually a no-dig system onto his lawn there. And that's a lot of what's been going on last year. And this year, people seem to be even more enthusiastic about their newfound gardening projects, and they're just keeping them going, which is absolutely wonderful. And then through working their gardens, I'm sure many people have discovered things about the soil that they never have seen for many years, maybe not since they were children, and really not taking much notice. Of course, the children love to get in the mud and play with the soil. I bet you did too. But people have been applying it, I've been talking to, have been applying a lot more thought into what's good for the garden and thinking of, well, what's bad for the garden. Well, I would like to cover this afternoon how we can actually apply ourselves to biodiversity wonders. I say first day of Biodiversity Week, so why not? And I'll bring in a bit of folklore, of course. So thinking of folklore, I'm going to start off with a story that I told last year, because I'm embarrassed that I'm not outside. Each Sunday I'm in the kitchen here. I'm dying to have an outdoor session again. So I've got a video clip of me telling a story within the tree labyrinth here, and I think this is a good way to start off all we're going to be covering this afternoon. So let's get this rolling. The story is by Wangari Maathai from Kenya, a wonderful woman, environmental activist out there in Kenya, and a teacher. And there's a little story that she tells. You might be familiar with it. It's told to children a lot. And it tells of a huge forest fire in Kenya, which unfortunately, when they have droughts, it frequently happens. And this forest fire was huge, and all the animals were running out of this forest fire, and the birds were coming out, and they got to safety out of the fire, and they were looked in, and they were mesmerized, and they were really overwhelmed to see their home, the place that they lived, suddenly burning away. What are they going to do? All were overwhelmed except for a little hummingbird. And this little hummingbirds, they do, just looking and flapping. Oh, what can you do? What can we do? And this little hummingbird went into a stream that was by all these animals looking, and took a little bit of water in its little tiny beak, and it flew off into the fire and dropped the water from its little beak. And it came back to the water, got a bit more water in its beak, and it went off to the fire, and it just kept going backwards, forwards, and of course with its little wings it was zoom, 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 and all these other animals, they were looking this way. What on earth is this little creature doing? Especially the elephant. I mean, the elephant has got this great big trunk and would be able to take all that water and spray it over the fire. Oh no, elephant doesn't do that. Elephant is too busy criticizing this little hummingbird and doing what it's doing and saying, what on earth are you wasting your time with that? You're not going to be able to put out the fire with the little drops of water with your little tiny beak and your little wings going into the fire and dropping it. And the hummingbird just kept going and kept going. And unfortunately, elephants and the others were kind of agreeing with the elephants. Why on earth are you bothering? And eventually the hummingbird turned round to the elephant and the others and said, well, I'm doing what I can do. Well, that was that. Short and sweet. It was the beginning of, let's get that off for you. Where am I? Yeah, I got to get rid of that. That's it. That's the start. As I say, a very short clip from the beginning of last year. Didn't realize it was that short. I'm doing what I can do. And that's really going to be the main theme of today. The mass proliferation we're facing with the news often corrupted news, it's never been as rapid and as widespread as it is today, is it? So from all this, we may ask, what can I do to better the world? And sadly, I think there seems to be an addiction of a concept of, if we shout loud enough, we'll get things changed. And I'm personally saddened by people that I know, and this seems to be growing, people that have actually parked their little projects, they parked their gardens, they parked their holistic practices, their local spirituality and their counseling practices, and now putting most of their energy into joining marches, campaigns for political positions, and even positions in corporations and churches, believing that by doing so, they could be a part of influencing and leading even meaningful changes. Meaningful by doing this through shouting as a persuasion. But then who's listening, especially if we're shouting? Thinking of that little hummingbird in that little snap of that story that I shared, and I'm doing what I can do. To me, that's a wonderful personal approach to the vast wonder of what we call biodiversity. It's a very simple home-based approach that I believe has very powerful earth-changing potential. But I think we're personally challenged. How can we feel that seemingly small things that we can do and that we do will actually create a change towards better earth care? Now, this afternoon, my thoughts are going to be with this, through our awareness of biodiversity within our surroundings, within our landscape around us, and also within ourselves. Now, I firmly believe that world changes start from how we are within ourselves. And we think, oh, we're so tiny. What can we do? But then if we're angry, eventually the people around us get angry, and that spreads, and maybe the whole world could get angry. But if we're caring, I believe that that spreads too. And the world will eventually be caring. And as I say, sorry, I'm run out of pictures now because I didn't have time to put many up. But through our impatience, we may feel that all these small care things that we do, they're all very nice, very pleasant, but it's taking too long. The world's going to end next week or something like that. So perhaps we choose shouting instead, that we feel is faster, gets things done quicker. Now, lately on Facebook groups, there's been a lot of chat about dreams of forming communities of so-called like-minded people. It's very attractive, and enthusiastic ideas are being shared, and they include ideas for lovely things like permaculture gardens, food forests, community energy engineering, weaving co-ops, and community education. But what I feel that makes all this kind of fragile is actually the like-minded concept. I feel that such a gathering would be more sound if it was, thinking about this one, if it was a union of compatible skills, people with compatible skills. To me, like-minded reminds me of one of the episodes of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Some of you might remember this, where a spaceship of bank managers and sanitation inspectors landed on a fertile planet. And there, after landing, they had meetings and meetings after meetings. And this was all to discuss meetings and who was going to be the director of all this anyway. It seems to be hard to get effective action from a group. To me, I believe it's very difficult to get collective action from just like-minded people. And I believe group action needs a biodiversity of people of compatible skills, different skills, that are shared caringly among a group of people within any project. And I think one example, and this is very common, community gardens. Many people may join community gardens, but it only ends up one or two people that join up, do most of the work. The rest of the people are just there to pick up their share of the harvest when it's ready. And of course, when it's picking time, there's no shortage of volunteers. And there's many more volunteers when everything's picked and it has to be taken away. However, I believe that if all members of a community garden have previously been working allotments, their own wee gardens, and doing gardening for themselves and learning from it, from the experience, handfuls of soil, as I was saying, picking up confidence, trust, and their experience. And all this, by doing so, then they're focused. When they get to a community garden group, then the shared participation is going to be much more focused and much more likely. And it's not just going to be stuck with 2 people. Now, by doing things for ourselves on a wee bit of land, whether we call it organic gardening, food foresting, permaculture garden, I don't think any part of that is selfish or non-communal at all. But it's kind of in cultures that may cause us to think and believe that working by ourselves rather than in the community is being selfish. And when people say this to us, we might get feeling a bit guilty about this, don't we? But selfishness today, I think, when it's called upon us that we're being selfish, is because we're not following the winds of someone else's ideals, dreams, or even their greed. And unfortunately, that can be disguised upon us as influencing to believe that if we join them, we're following the common good rather than ourselves, such as what happened in Nazi Germany illusion. Well, that's a nasty example, I know. But I think that sums up in the fewest words what I'm trying to explain here. But here is what happens, well, at least on the land, if we sort of get selfish about it. We cannot go up to people and talk to them about how great organic growing, permaculture, and rewilding, we can't go up to people and say how great this all is if we're not actually doing any of this ourselves, because they won't listen, will they? And they may even challenge or mock us and say, they're not interested, as I say, all that mocking. We may come away from talking to people about this stuff feeling that really nobody cares. However, if we're actually doing something or attempting to do something on our land, on a wee bit of land, even on our balcony or allotment, such as a wee bit of pulling up the lawn, as I showed pictures earlier, and placing some raised beds on them maybe, and putting plants around where we've dug up or got the raised beds. And our garden, suddenly what was a lawn that people would go past and notice, is this action going on. There's these plants coming up, there's trees being planted. People notice, they become curious, they pay attention, and even they'll come up to us, even if it's to approach us, and of course advise us how what we're doing they could do better, including the experts who have not really tried to do anything for themselves, really, but were meaning to. Instead, they'll come up and tell us about a book they've read that says how to do things better than what we're doing. But what we do in simple, small steps can easily stir other people's imagination. And some people will they'll react to us and say, wow, what you're doing is something that I can do. Now, that's something I find myself doing often. Is that something you find that you can do? You're just watching people, you're the curious ones. Wow, that's something I can do. And you go back to your small little piece and you start doing that. Put that in comments of how you're doing that. Now, I'm thinking of some of our viewers. I don't think any of them are on today, but I see stuff like, we sometimes get locals on, Bridget Foy, Kate and Alan Burrows, Ina Gulman, and she does wonderful stuff with her daughter, Maureen. And I'll give you a bit of an example. You look at this, you get pictures up, and this is Bridget Foy's garden, and you see stuff like that. You might question, am I going to have a polytunnel like that? Oh, I want some trees like that. And you get ideas, and you want to kind of move them around, I think, is what you're doing. I wonder if you agree with that, and put that in the comments if you do. But this is a great way to be inspired by lots of ideas when you're curious. And when people are curious about what you're doing, they'll go off and do stuff too. So if any of those people just come up to talk to me about what they are doing without me seeing what they are doing, I may have the same reaction. I might not take any notice myself. People do things that are easy to understand, I believe, and then they go ahead and they partially copy. And I find this individuality duplication, I suppose you can call it, is very powerful and is potentially culture changing. Now, with most situations, we can do wonderful small scale work with simplicity, and by doing so, I believe, inspire others to do similar. Meanwhile, the big structures like the corporations, the politicians, religious people, they can go off and play their wee games. And really, they don't bother us. A lot of people fear that if we do small scale stuff, or the local politicians will be on top of us, the local corporations will be trying to take over. No, that rarely happens. This is sort of situation where we worry about things and only 0.5% of the stuff happens. So really nobody's going to bother us with our wee projects or even know we exist, but we can keep duplicating. People get inspired, they do that bit. And all these big organizations, we're spreading with our little bits of wonder, our biodiversity. They're not taking any notice. They're not even watching. And of course, if these small scale earth kindness projects that we do quietly spread, especially if everybody keeps small scale, it's going to be very hard for big organizations to stop any of this. And I'm thinking, one example, it's not to do with gardening, but I thought it was hilarious. I think it was in the 90s. And there was legislation that was passed in Texas, in the USA. And what they tried to do was make the use of vibrators in our home totally illegal. How could that ever be enforced or checked upon? Anyway, what I love about small scale copying through inspiration is all that biodiversity. We've got this sort of individualism because everybody's got different problems, and I wouldn't say problems, different challenges in their land. Some have different types of what you call weeds and others, trees. Some are hilly, some are flat, some have got clay, some have got sand. So we've got all these individual biodiversity variations. So we're not exactly copying. It becomes individual, but yet it's all interconnected, which is what biodiversity is. Now, the huge treasure chest I find of duplicating these small scale is this individual interpretation that we have. And we learn that we can adapt. We have ideas and we adapt once we know the conditions in our surroundings. And that really builds up passion, I find. We don't follow any centralized national policy. The trouble, I think, with centralized national policies is it's a belief that one way fits all. There's a decision maybe made in Dublin, right, the whole country can do this. And I feel that something like that can be a very destructive approach, especially when we think biodiversity. It's very anti-biodiversity, isn't it? Centralization. I think an example, especially here in Ireland, where we can see that happening, and it's happened for many years now, is the monoculture Sitka spruce tree planting. That's one example of that, where there's a central policy, boom, same fits all. No, it doesn't. But if we keep our land approach simple and small scale, with our small steps, the whole world can potentially change. That's the dream of it. That's the passion of it anyway. And our small land, our garden projects, never mind the world policy, the world changing. What does it do for us inside? What therapy does it have? I talk at the beginning about our sanctuary, tree sanctuary, but if we're out in the garden, we're poking away with our little trowels, we're putting plants in, what's that do to us? That is a huge therapy. That is a sanctuary in its own way. It doesn't feel like work. We feel somehow that we're at one with it all, don't we? And what incredible therapy that is. We also learn and become apprentices of our own discoveries as we're doing this, rather than be cultured slaves to books and distant courses. The biggest lessons I feel that go deep within inside us are with our simple, small-scale activities. And it's the learning of adaptability is much more powerful, learning as we go, than centralized spreadsheet driven large policy situations. Nothing's considered. And I think we can do all this through quiet, sanctuary application, and things change. And we are not shouting. We're not trying to shout the loudest. Now I'm going to continue this story a bit later, but first, let's see. We got some new people along. Let's see what you're saying so far. The wonderful people you're joining. We got Sherry joining us, who was our lovely guest last week. Good morning, everyone down in East Lane. Candice through the YouTube, looking for one now in my village now. Explain what you're looking for. It'd be great, Candice. And Davina, lovely that you're around. Good morning. And Candice from North Carolina, anyway, that's chatting there. So I'm going to move on because we got some great stuff coming up here now. Excuse me while I take a wee drink, because we got a lovely guest. Let's see if they're going to be. Let's see if they're on here. Are you here? No, you're not here yet. Okay, Hamit's here, but the other people will have them on live a bit later if they turn up. But these people, they got a lovely small-scale operation, and at least if they weren't here, I've got a lovely video anyway. If I can get a video, I think. Oh, no, that's not what I want. Come on, buttons. I'm back again. Now, I'm trying to line these people up, but sorry about that. Right, I know where I am with that. Anyway, they've got a lovely small-scale operation that puts what I've just shared into action. I'm talking about Rodrigo Altastiva and his wife, Mayra, and their family. And they live, they're from Mexico, but they live in Berkeley, California. And I had a kind of a picture of both of them, fingers and thumbs at the moment. And I think, let's see if I get it. As I say, there they are. That's it. That's them doing their dance. As I say, they're typical. It's gone. They are. They're fabulous. As I say, they are. I'm going to put the thing up there, but they are dancers anyway. And like my own family, what's beautiful, they usually watch each week. And like my own family in Scotland, they call me Grandpa Island. But they're not here at the moment. But I think I've got a video, and I think you'll love this video because Rodrigo is from Mexico, and he demonstrates something he discovered, and it's something you can copy. I've been talking about copying, and it's something that can actually feed us very easily. It's something some of you might be already doing inside in winter. Now, this is not from a book or a course. He discovered this, Rodrigo discovered this from his own instinct and from his own playing around. There's a bit of folklore behind it as well. And you'll find when he talks, there's something very Mayan about this from Rodrigo's ancestry and his approach. And you'll understand that as the video goes on, and the way he speaks and how he presents. You feel as if you bring him right back into his ancestry. It's beautiful as we go on. Anyway, I'm going to I'm going to get the video wound up, and I've got a bit of I was trying to think of the website. Come on up. I'm sorry, I've got very sluggish buttons again today. It's not coming up. Oh, here it is. There you go. They are the Dance Monks. DanceMonks.com if you want to find out what they're doing. And hopefully they'll be here live very shortly. It is very early for them. I think it's 6:30 in the morning where they live at the moment. So anyway, here's the video of Rodrigo Altastiva explaining a lovely little project in his garden.
Hola, buenos días. Good morning for you. Good evening for us here in Berkeley, in California. My name is Rodrigo Esteva. I'm from Mexico City. I've been interested in agriculture and in gardening for about 20 years. I have this passion for the natural world, and specific for gardening and plants. I grew up in a urban environment, and in a way, gardening has been always for me a way to stay connected to the spirit of nature. a daily practice of listening and feeling, but also stay connected to the land in a time of, some difficulty and stress, and also at the same time provide food for me and my family. We are in love with microgreens, and I started learning about this technique, yeah, about a year ago. And because I've been, like many of you, a little more isolated than usually, this just became an opportunity to get closer to myself and to nature. And well, I do want to share this with you, thinking that maybe one of you would like to give a try to this very specific kind of agriculture, a specific technique of microgreens, open field. So the first thing that I want to mention is, well, just give a little explanation of what microgreens are. The characteristic of microgreens is that you can harvest very soon. They are very, very beautiful plants, and they are also delicious and highly nutritious. And specific, they are really good for the immune system. And today I brought in my tenate, which is a very beautiful kind of basket that we use in Mexico when we go to harvest corn, that we can carry usually in our heads, this way, like this. And then we can be just walking around and then harvest the corn and put it on the back. But I use, even here in Berkeley, in the city, just to carry my tools when I go to grow. And through the time, I've been working on making this a very simple process that doesn't require a lot of stuff, meaning that I want to use very inexpensive things to be able to have like a little crop. So obviously the first thing that you need is some soil, but I do want to mention that you don't need to worry about having really rich soil, because you will harvest very soon in the cycle of the plant. You won't need to wait like 30 days, 45 days, you will wait only 10 days, meaning that the nutrients that the plant will need to grow are inside of the seed, meaning that you could have very poor soil, and if you want to, you can add a layer of compost for the top. So that I do usually is that I learn the different ways of doing this. One of the best ways to grow microgreens is using a board or plywood. This one is pretty thick, and this will have different roles. One is that it will create shade for the seeds. It will protect them from the birds. It will cover the seeds, keep the moisture, and also something very important is that it will give them little weight. Some people can actually grow microgreens using thicker pieces of wood, and they can tolerate a lot of weight, and that helps them to grow faster, in fact. So usually what I do is finding a beautiful piece of soil, and I already prepare this soil, meaning that the soil is loose, at least just the surface, like about 3 inches from the surface down. I don't need to worry that much about going deeper like with other plants, because the roots are really small. So what I will do first is find the land, and I use the board itself to just place it on top of the soil, and I like pressing a little bit. I want to make this surface as flat as possible. That will help me during the process of harvesting. I don't want to have big holes underneath the board. That's the way I do it. And then I use uncover, and I love using my hands. It's a very beautiful moment that gives me a chance to just thank the earth for giving food to my family. And I always like to have, like it's done in many cultures in Mexico, around the world, a sense of gratitude, because the soil cannot be just measured as, like a thing that you care about pH and, in that very mental way. You connect with the soil with your heart. And I like touching it. And I can say things to the soil if I want. Usually I say, thank you so much for giving food to my family. I could couldn't do anything without you. I come from you and I will come back to you when I die. And as I do that, you know, each person has a different way of doing it. I just like to fill the soil and kind of like break down the little, you know, bigger pieces. There will be some roots there, but I don't really care that much about that. But I don't want it to be flat, the surface. After that, I will take a hose and water. I want it to be really moisture. Here in Berkeley, it's getting a little hot, and it's important that the soil is not too dry. So I'll go ahead and take the hose and I will water this. And the same attitude I have with the soil, I have it with water because I couldn't do anything without water. I'm gonna make this actually pretty wet. I'll keep it for about 2 minutes and I'll like spraying it. Why? Because I'm gonna cover this with the plywood or the wood, and it's gonna stay like that for 3 days at least. And then I turn it off, and then I'll go and use my seeds. For today, I'm gonna use two kinds of seeds that my experience are excellent for microgreens. One is broccoli, that happens to be excellent to fortify the immune system. And if you notice, I have here a bag of 1 pound, meaning like I won't go to a store and buy those little tiny bags of seeds, because for microgreens you do need a lot of seeds, and you'll see why. So the next thing I will do is take the seeds and I'm gonna spread them on the soil, kind of like if I was putting sugar on top of a cake. I want them to be very close to each other, and I just sprinkle them around the area where I'm gonna be growing. So ideally, that I will have is seeds very close to each other, lots of seeds, but I'm trying to avoid them to be in big groups on top of each other, if that makes sense. Meaning I'm trying to spread them out evenly as possible. And the same attitude as the one that I having as I plant the seed that I have when I water or prepare the soil. I can talk with the seeds and just thank them for feeding me, my family, for being so beautiful. They are really beautiful seeds. These are broccoli. There's a lot of studies about the health benefits of broccoli. Excellent specifically for the immune system, and very, very good for the lungs. This is a very good time to grow these kind of seeds. And then I will keep on going. I'm gonna take the seed, and I don't feel afraid to use a lot of seed. You do need that. Definitely necessary for this kind of technique to get large quantities of seeds. And I'll spread out as evenly as possible. If you feel that there's a little too many seeds in one area, you can always use your finger to separate them a little bit. They will separate as they grow anyways, I find out that. Even when I already water, after I set up the seeds into place, I want to water once again. But the way I do this is very important. I don't want to direct the hose directly into the seeds because it might move them in place. So I spray up like a rain, and I just let it receive this kind of gentle rain. And I'm done with the watering. And then I take my plywood or my wood I'm gonna place it on top of the seed. Once I finish that, what I can do is take the soil from the surrounding areas and just push it against the board. I'm just trying to avoid some animals to come too close to the seeds. Kind of like seal the board. After I do that, I can put a little bit more weight. Now, the seed will be here for 3 days. There's enough moisture in the soil to help with the beginning of the process. After 3 days, I will come and take out the board and just check on the seeds. I'm gonna be looking into how they're growing. If there's a little bit of mold, that can happen. I can keep the board outside. I just put it on the side and let them be exposed to the sun for a couple of hours and then cover again. Something very important about microgreens that I learned and that I didn't know before is that it's very important to really commit to the process. And definitely I won't recommend this kind of system if you are not the kind of person that is willing to really give 10 days to really follow through. Meaning that if you're gonna go somewhere in the weekend, please don't do microgreens because it won't work. After the third day, when you uncover, you need to be checking on your seeds every single day. If it's really hot, sometimes you need to water twice. How you're gonna water? You can spray, the way I did it. If it's really hot, you might need to do it twice. But don't expect them to grow if you abandon them. You really need to be there every single day, and it's really special to see them grow. They are really beautiful. After 10 days, about 10 to 12 days, depending on the seed, depending on the weather, you might be able to harvest. How you harvest? You take scissors, or some people use a knife, and then you cut from the base of the plant. Some people confuse microgreens with the sprouts. The difference between the sprouts and microgreens is that with the sprouts, you pull the whole plant and you eat the roots. With microgreens, you just cut and eat the top. After you do that, you can rinse them. It's important to rinse them, and you can add them to salads. You can make a whole salad only of microgreens. They are very tasty. And we also sometimes add them to soups. They're really good on that way too. And that's about it. After I do that, if I'm in the garden, something that I love doing is taking my flute and playing for them a little bit. So and this is the whole process. I will be sharing with you some pictures of the microgreens. Not this specific crop that I have here, but some of the pictures of microgreens that we have harvested in the past. And please, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact us, and I'll be happy to respond to them. Thank you so much, and I hope you can try this too.
Well, thanks very much, Rodrigo. Sorry they're not on live. Maybe, as I say, it's very early where they are, but they're quite frequent viewers. And I'm sorry the signal kept going in and out. I have a monitor here that shows the strength of signal, and I see it's only half now. So I hope you did hear a good section of that. It has been going up and down, which is very unfortunate. So I apologize if some of that was lost. Let's hope the signal comes back up. It's still very fragile at the moment, but I'll carry on and hope for the best with this. Just, sorry, to recap, biodiversity, that's what we're about. And that was a fantastic example of a little project that can feed ourselves very quickly. And but biodiversity is a subject. It has come to the attention with a lot of people over the last 15 years, especially as the word biodiversity made popular with social media. 15 years of the last social media that we got involved with it. And biodiversity, I feel, is connected to our wonder, like organic growing, biodynamic gardening, permaculture, food forest gardening. How all those things have captured our imagination, and we've had a go at these things. And now biodiversity is the thing of this week. And we see and feel all these things as being wonderful and wholesome, and even contributing to saving the planet, saving the earth, of course. And we also feel we want to be totally engrossed and totally connected into doing these things. And our passion, like Rodrigo was really expressing there, I feel, for the soil and what's growing from it and how that's entwined into our lives. And I should be thinking what Rodrigo said, that we come from the soil, we work the soil, and we go back to the soil. And this passion is always part of us, as long as we do not bury ourselves in books, YouTubes, and courses before we've grabbed a handful of soil and let our senses work with it. Now, one of the surprising things I read last year when we went into the COVID and people were digging up their lawns for gardens is that Irish people actually have the largest average sized gardens in the whole of Europe. So at last, most gardening centres are back open around Ireland. I'm glad they are, because last year, during the COVID restrictions, we had to order everything for our gardens online. You got all these new gardeners that are coming online. And it was such a challenge because these garden centres who hadn't really tackled online ordering much were suddenly finding their servers were blocked up. They just couldn't cope, just totally overwhelmed with orders. And to actually get stuff delivered was a nightmare. It was like the sale of garden plants was more dramatic than the sale of toilet papers. You remember the rush on toilet papers from supermarkets at the beginning of the COVID lockdown. Now, getting back to digging up some lawn and getting back into vegetable, fruit, and herb growing again, it seems as if it's all new again for a lot of people. But people, being human, also want to know exactly how to do it and exactly how to go about it, don't they? So another COVID boom in industry, it seemed to be, was the ordering and buying of gardening books, videos, and enrolling in courses. And people did all this to attempt to get a complete understanding of not only what's the best gardening larks are, but also to understand the natural organic workings of this new word in their lives. Biodiversity. I'll have to study that. I'll have to get a PhD in biodiversity. People want to know exactly what to do that's the best for their gardens, of course. And people may spend a month, maybe a year, 2 years, 5 years, maybe more, looking at all this lovely content material. So could people like this end up being like the elephants and the other animals in that story, brief story I told earlier? All those animals outside that burning forest. But how about approaching your gardens like that little hummingbird in that story? For practicing biodiversity improvement and gardening in general, I do not think it's really essential to plan, learn stuff, earn certificates, get a degree or doctorship in biodiversity. Biodiversity, think about it, it's been around for millions of years, many more millions of years before us humanoids were on this earth. So like in that little story, it's all about doing what we can do. And I think one of the many things that pauses us from jumping in and doing a garden with our instincts and respect for biodiversity is the modern buzz phrase, and you'll all have heard it, and some of you may say it, I say it sometimes, connecting with nature. To me, connecting with nature, that inspires a non-natural application to a wee bit of land. And by saying connecting with nature is perhaps causing us to have a belief that we're actually separated from nature. Now, isn't that an incredible abstract illusion, if you think about it? I think a better way of approaching this, a better contemplation to go about this, is remind ourselves that the Earth is a closed system of life for a start, and life in Earth is operating with all those thousands, millions maybe, of organic bodies, all resident on this planet, whether it's life of a butterfly for 2 or 3 days, or a bird for 8 or 9 years, or even us humans, if we're lucky, we've got 50 to 100 years, or even more. Now, when life within us leaves our bodies, it actually goes somewhere else. Now, that is from basic physics. Life, energy is never destroyed. First year physics in high school or secondary school will teach you that. No energy is ever destroyed. It just changes into something else. And I'm going to bring this up more in the Water Folklore Session next Sunday. But for today, I think it's important to feel that we're all part of everything. And sometimes I feel that understanding is a little bit lost. So perhaps we need sometimes to take the opportunity to be mindful of how we are always part of nature and how we are doing our bit by just being ourselves. And that mindful contemplation is something that's wonderful. As I advise, do it within what we feel is sanctuary outside. And I was going to talk to the ins and outs about growing organic food, but we're really moving on. So I'm just suggesting that being in tune with the organic flow of life is also being in tune with how we're a component of all this. We are nature too. We can't escape that. And in short, it's just I'm a bit confused by this connecting with nature concept. So how about thinking of overcoming a possible denial we may have of being connected to nature? So if you feel you should be connected with nature more and more and better, how about turning that around into wondering how can we dissolve our denial of being born into this wonderful, infinite, biodiverse network of life on Earth? I feel that once we dissolve that denial we may carry, suddenly our instincts, our natural common sense, it all lures us. It kind of moves us in what we need to do. So I suppose what I'm suggesting here is cultivate trust in life. People do ask me, what's the best book on biodiversity? What's the best course? What's the best YouTube channel to go to? Well, my only honest response really is forget about all that. Ponder around your garden, tuning to how the life is weaving there as you go around. And if you grab some fertile soil, I think I better get back onto some pictures here. I got some lovely soil grabbing pictures. Just grab some soil, check what's happening within it, and you'll see worms, beetles, millipedes, earwigs, little spiders, and ants, ouch! And all those different creatures weaving in and out. And if you look closely, there'll be a robin close by working out how to grab lunch from your handful of soil. So you become really aware that a pile of soil is really a pile of shit, really, isn't it? It's right out of Sawan folklore, really, what I'm going into here, where the debris of leaves and the year's harvest, they're rotting down, and through the winter, all this transforms into the new life that's needed for the next Imbolc spring onwards. Now, those creatures in your handful of soil, they're eating up debris, transforming new life for the next cycle of the season. And to me, that hand of soil, this is, more than anything, the heart of biodiversity. More than anything else, that handful of soil, get hands into it, it's an instinctive understanding. And as I often say on the show, I don't think anybody could claim to be a druid or a shaman unless they've got their hands in the soil. Now, if we can feel part of all this in the handful of soil, we recognize biodiversity. It's complex, but it's that simple, a handful of soil. So within a handful of soil, accepting the infinite complexity of all of that, well, to explain more of that, we got a lovely special guest who was with us last week. And during the past week, I learned he gave us some lovely poems last week, but I learned that he's been a transformative organic growing farmer for many years. So it's really a huge honor to return our poet storyteller, and now I've learned farmer, and he's there in the back studio. Ahmed Dahir Badsha. I don't know if I got it. How are you doing there, Ahmed? Let's get my headphones on so I can actually hear you're saying. Thank you again for your patience. I mean, he sort of comes on almost like an hour before. And so this week, I hope we're loud and clear. I think our signal is back up, so you should have a good session. First of all, how are you doing there, Amit?
Doing very well, thank you, Don.
Great, and you're loud and clear. Very good, excellent, and all the more excited now that you're on to explain a bit about your work as being an organic farmer, and especially the people that you taught. So go ahead, give an introduction to how you worked as an organic farmer. Looking forward to this.
When I was a young lad growing up in Haryana, my community there called Jats, 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 were farmers and soldiers. And so when I was young, I found that the scientists from the agriculture colleges would come over to talk to my elders about modern agriculture. And I found there was always a gap, a communication gap. Amongst themselves, the farmers would be laughing at my father and my elders and my uncles. And amongst themselves, my elders would be laughing at them. This gap between people who had an urban education and people who were educated on their own, considered illiterate, this gap was the problem in our productivity. So I have tried to bridge that gap by getting involved in communication, by doing extension work amongst the early organic farmers in this country. I bought my first car with mushrooms that I grew organically, organic mushrooms. And I believe that the important thing here is about people growing things that are good for them. We used to produce 8 quintals to 11 quintals of wheat when I was young per acre. And then the Green Revolution came and the hybrid variety of wheat from America. And suddenly we were doing 23 and 24 quintals. And that marked the end of our transition from an organic life, not just organic farming, but an organic life. That's the real purpose. I mean, today we are not able to fight COVID because we do not live an organic life anymore. We've lost our immunity. And it is important for each of us. It's important not just for our appetite, but it's important for our existence as humans to go as strongly back to nature as possible, to be connected with nature in as many ways as possible. And this doesn't necessarily have to be just done in our gardens or those who have the luxuries of gardens and farms, but I think it also has to be done by urban people. Everyone has to become a micro farmer. Anyone can produce microgreens. You can produce them in a window. You have a bunch of shelves, you put in little trays, and you can grow all the microgreens that you need in those trays. You don't need land. So let's take the example of protein, for instance. Protein. We have these huge farms that are producing unhealthy eggs and meat from sad and happy battery-raised birds. But there is a smaller bird called a Japanese quail. And in a rack, like a bookshelf, of about 2 feet by 6 feet by 6 feet high, with let's say 4 or 5 shelves, you can meet all your family protein needs by raising Japanese quails. Imagine a bookshelf. A bookshelf produces all the protein you need, both meat and eggs. And Japanese quail is delicious compared to chicken. Once you've eaten Japanese quail, you won't go back. It's a bird that's one sixth or eighth the size of a chicken, but it is delicious and it's nutritious, and the eggs are wonderful. Incidentally, the markings on their eggs are as individual as our own thumbprints. No two birds' eggs have the same markings on Japanese quail. But coming back to an important point, in the COVID era, the biggest problem is that we have lost our immunity. China didn't need to invent the coronavirus. It's probably been there forever, but we had our immunity that made us completely oblivious to it. And having lost our immunity, it's not just corona. I mean, next year it's going to be another virus, and after that another, because the decline in immunity is a decline in your humanity. Whatever you cherish as a human being will not be part of your wealth in life if you lose your immunity. It's important, each one of us, I mean, the virus has taught us this, that we need to what you call focus first of all on our health and our immunity, and they are connected with what we eat. And
now,
in that sense, yeah, please.
Carry on.
No, you were saying something.
I was saying, you were saying teaching people organically. Are you actually teaching any farmers at present? Are you teaching, especially the urban techniques, which I'm finding fascinating because I'm speaking from rural Ireland and I suppose largely sharing that experience. And you're coming in delightfully with the urban experience, which is so important. And that's lovely what you've explained, especially what you can grow. And the quails, that's a wonderful example. Are you actually doing any teaching around this at the moment, Amit?
Sure. I mean, I'm a full-time poet for the last 20, 25 years, but I do farm consultancy. I help small and marginal farmers to become self-sufficient, consulting across the country.
Oh.
And I headed an international organic farming training project where the poorest farmers from all over Asia, from the Philippines to
Oops, we're losing you a bit.
Can you hear me now?
You're clear now. Carry on. We just lost you for a minute there, but you're back.
Yeah. Sorry. The thing is that the further away we move from the basics in our nutrition, the more agriculture becomes chemically industrialized to cater to our needs. For one thing, we eat too much.
Yeah. Now, if you approach a farm, have you approached farmers who are using the chemicals? Have you somehow managed to educate them into letting go of the chemicals and going back to the organics? Have you been successful with that?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I always suggest to farmers is that if you are going to be organic, you need to make sure that you are not living away from your land. You need to move your homestead onto
good point.
Into the middle of your land holding. You may have 5 acres or 10 acres or 20 acres, or even just 2 acres. We designed a project called Magic Acre, where step number 1, move on to your land. If you're in debt, if you're not making money from agriculture, then step number 1, move onto your land. because even the human waste gets recycled very efficiently into soil
Yes.
strength, you know. And
I'm glad you said that, because we got that situation even in Ireland, around where I am. Some of the farmers that are here, they've moved into town. They operate the farms, but you always get that feeling that they don't care much about the land because they're stuck in the
yeah,
town. They know what's
yeah.
going on if they're on that. So thanks for bringing that up. Very important point.
And
Uh,
then the second thing that farmers need to do to become organically successful is to get connected to the marketplace. Because unless you become a stakeholder in the market, you will never get a fair price for your produce. You know,
yeah.
marketing is an important thing for small farmers to make a living from their land. If we are going to go organic, we need to be connected to the marketplace. So someone in the
That's what's
family has to sell uh, regularly, fixed time, fixed place. As long as you keep showing up there regularly, within 2 or 3 months, people will know that you can get organic produce out here. You don't need to go to the supermarkets. You don't need to also go
exactly.
into. You don't not need to be sucked in by the marketing, machinery. Just
That's
find a simple little place where at a fixed time, fixed date, fixed place, you can sell your produce there. You may lose
brilliant.
some produce, but within a few weeks, people will come to know that at this place, at this time, organic produce is available, and they will come to you.
That's a lovely thing that's been growing around here, especially it's been enhanced by the COVID time because people had to be outside. That we're being more aware of the markets. Farmers are actually putting up their stalls at the end of their driveways. I imagine that's hopefully in India that's never gone away, but in Ireland it's lovely to see the return of farmers, like you say, being responsible for the distribution rather than hope a supermarket is going to come along, because for a while the farmers were
Yeah.
complaining about the bad prices at supermarkets. Then they discovered if they put a bit more work in it, then it becomes exciting. They become the community. So thanks. You must have a lot of that. That must be very much of your culture around there. Am I right?
When I was visiting Australia, I was shocked to find that farmers were selling milk at a price that was cheaper than water. Water was more expensive in the market than milk. So
Yeah,
it's
that's not becoming too common, unfortunately.
yeah. So I think that it's important for us, for small holders and small farmers, to create a connectivity with a chunk of the urban community and become the supplier to their needs. So,
Great.
you just go there at a certain time in the evening and take your produce for the day, because when you harvest in the evening, it's cool and the spoilage level is low, and uh, and you go there to that place. So that whole community will rally around you and become your customers. It only takes
Exactly.
6 to 8 weeks to establish a
Mhm.
connectivity. So just pick
That's
one
brilliant.
neighborhood in the city and you supply
Mhm.
their needs, and that works
Ah,
perfectly. So second, I think that farmers, in addition to selling produce, should also cater to people's natural need to grow food. And so potted plants that are already in fruit, like pots with that have tomatoes
what?
already, people will happily buy them at a premium
Mhm.
to put into their kitchens or their flats and harvest their own tomatoes. Now you can
Yeah.
earn about 6 to 8 times what you would get for a pound of tomatoes if you sell a potted plant with about a half pound of tomatoes on it, and someone will pay you 10 times the price. So we can help people to get back to nature by taking nature to them. And
Well, thanks
farmers
very
and
much for that, Emmett. That's summed up so much and beautifully. I'm going to have to roll on now because of the time. It was so
please,
wonderful to have you explain what's very important points there. And hopefully we'll have you back again. But I'm rolling on. Thanks. You
please.
you was on with us early. Hold on, we might get back to you again in a moment if there's so many questions that come through. But thank you again, Emmett. Thanks for sharing what was very important stuff there. Thank you. Yeah, Emmett really summed stuff, what we needed to know, the whole, very much a roundup there. And I've got Davina again, she says, connect with nature. I'm going back, that we're never disconnected. It's just being aware and stop that denial. That I wish I'd got the pictures up. I didn't have time, but there was a lovely display of pictures. One of the a bloom. We have bloom, but we can't at the moment. We have a bloom festival here the first week of June, first weekend of June, and there was one that really moved me, and it was a social garden where people, perhaps with mental challenges, they got into a social farming. Now, what this whole garden was this individual in a concrete room contemplating over their mentality challenge, I suppose you would say, and there was a light on a doorway out into the garden, and they featured this beautiful garden that was very much a permaculture garden. And I thought that was an illustration that we're never disconnected from that. We sort of mentally deny our connection with that, and that's where the social farming comes in. It helps to eliminate our denial of such a thing. I think that's such an important point, is eliminate the idea of connecting with nature. Just trust nature and eliminate your denial. I think that's a huge message I'm trying to get across today anyway. And there's Elizabeth, who is a keen gardener herself. Elizabeth Flynn, plants want to grow, no reason why everybody shouldn't grow food, really. And that's one thing that Amit was very great with. He's talking from an urban perspective, and what I have done in past weeks, that you can do wonders with your balcony, wonders on your shelf. There are even little, I'm not going to go into the hydroponics, but there's even hydroponic possibilities as well. It's amazing what you can do. And in Tokyo, in Japan, they're very good on urban forestry and gardening. So, and as I say, you avoid YouTube. So if you see some of that, that could be a bit of an inspiration, because we can't fly out to Japan. But see what your local urban is doing. What is happening locally is going to be more appropriate to yourself. So when you go into town and you talk to people in the market, see what they're doing if they're in apartments. Wonderful. Thanks very much. Who else is saying? We've got Candice here. Funny, the toilet paper. Yes, that was a hell of a thing, wasn't it? Video was so lovely. I'm glad that Rodrigo, they were supposed to be on live. Sorry they didn't make it on live for some reason. Very unusual. But there was a lot of passion there with the planning, wasn't there? Wonderful. I'm glad I managed to get through to you, because concerned the volume was going in and out now. And signal here was showing to go in and out for a while. Lovely to see Sarah Humble here. Sarah, can you be on next week, please? We got the water folklore next week. Love to have you on board next week as well, live, and have a chat with you, see how you're getting on with the wells and the well projects. Claire's on board. Come on, Claire. You're supposed to be here. There you go. And Claire, wonderful demonstration of microgreens. I enjoyed that. And Claire also told me that it was loud and clear with her. So that's fabulous. So thank you for all that. We've still got some more stuff here. Claire's back on here with another comment. Lovely to hear the conversation between Annette and you. Thank you very much for that. And very inspiring show. Still got more to go, though. Don't leave. I know I'm on overtime. I suppose to sum up this session, because I've got a couple of things to show you here. But how do you enhance biodiversity in your own garden? As I say, last year I kind of presented a free book that had been released, Gardening for Biodiversity. And I don't have, I'm overrunning, so I don't have time to present it today, not fully. I'm going to do a bit of presentation, but I'm not sure if the county heritage departments are stocking it. So get onto your local council offices, go to the heritage departments, see if the free book is available. Let's see if I can get the picture up again so you know what I'm talking about. I think that's it. There you go. See if they got that in stock, and ask for a copy. They'll post it to you free of charge. And it's beautiful. It'll be with you for life. It's a real book. It's absolutely fabulous. And I'm going to show you something about it because you can get the PDF. I'm going to post the PDF link in the comments, but I'm going to spend a bit of time now. I'm going to go through to the link. I haven't done this on this system for a while, so let me see if I can get through. Get rid of that, and let's see if I can get this onto the stream. There we go. I'm going to see if I can pull this up full. Can I get this full screen? Let's see. I'm going to go through this and see if I can operate this for you to give you a few pages example of this. That's page 1, obviously. I'm going to try and get more pages going. Where are we? There should be the tools for getting more of this for you. I can't find the tool button. Sorry. What does this do? No. Right, that does something. I'm making a balls of this, aren't I? There we go. Let's go back to this. Page 2. Let's see if we can go on to page 2. Right, there we go. And this will give you a brief look, introduction, lovely book, explain garden important, what is biodiversity, beetles, 5 gold star plants. I'm just giving you a quick rush through some of the pages here. Beautiful book, and I'm going to put a link on this for you. Butterflies, bees, pollinators. See how gorgeous this book is. So simple, but how inspiring this is. So that's really just a few pages for you. And I hope that gives you an idea of that. And I'm going to put a link after I finish the show, and you can download the PDF of that for yourself. And I'm going to try and link you now. As I say, that was a brief introduction. And before we finish, I've got one more video feature. So hold on. Let's see, any more comments here? I've got one nice little video thing that's come up. Sherry says something that can be downloaded here. Well done, Sherry. Oh boy, I haven't heard of that one, but great. That's as good as any. Wherever you can get it, fantastic. Thank you for that, Sherry. On the ball before I was. Brilliant. Highly appreciate that, and I think a lot of people will too. Now I got some stickiness here. Sorry about that. There we go. Right, and any other chats going on? Right, I don't think I've missed any of your comments there. As I say, I've got one more feature, and as I mentioned at the start of this session, Nature Folklore Sessions brought to you by Patreon. I don't think I need to go through that again. I'll do a quick flash up of the banner, and I appreciate your help and support on this. It covers the subscriptions, and it helps me to be on the air. But coming up on the Nature Folklore Sessions, as I say, I've got one more video that I'm going to show you, but I'll show you what's coming up on the Nature Folklore Sessions. And next week, as I hinted to Sarah there, that we have water folklore. And I'll be rounding up more special guests for that, definitely through the week, because we're going to make that very special indeed. And then on the 30th of May, we got Rewilding Our Mind and Spirit. Oh, and come on, picture. I got a picture for that. There it is. And that's a bit of a follow-up today, really, with a bit more folklore to it. And then I hinted again, 6th of June, it's bloom time. And we'll have some guests on showing their garden sanctuaries, and it's all about our garden sanctuaries. And that's on the 6th of June. It's not going to be tree sanctuaries, obviously, at that time. And that's off. Right. All about your flowers and veggies and herbs, and how all this is peaceful therapy for you all, and as well as being practical and productive. So any more comments before I get to the poem? Thank you for the amazing guest today, Rodrigo Esteva. Sorry the Myra and the family went on with him, but another time maybe. And of course, Ahmed Dahir Badshah, who was great. So if you're watching this broadcast later as an archive video, please also keep your comments going, because I do check them up. There's a lot more people are actually watching this in the evening and in the week. Davina says it's been inspirational. Thank you very much for that, Davina. I'm glad that was good for you. So I return from time to time. Now I'm going to finish up. And this is a short biodiversity poem that I shared with you last year. And I think it's lovely to finish off with this now. And I'm going to try and track it down. Beautiful poems in a different location to share with them now. I think this is beautiful.
But I picked up this lovely poem by a young person, USA. Her name's Elisa Jordan. She's from the Chase Middle School, Washington State in the USA. And she kind of, in her poem, I think sums up some of the stuff I've been trying to share with you. Here's her poem then, Biodiversity. Biodiversity is many things. Birds, trees, flowers. Everything helps everything. Sit and watch it weave for hours. Robins, sparrows, mallards and blackbirds, all and more are part of all of it too. How could we put all of this into words when we really don't want to? Why cause something to lose its sensory beauty just so you can say to people, I went walking through the city and saw a flower today? Words can never express the way nature enriches lives. Let's put study with words to rest and then feel how much nature thrives. Sadly, animals are quickly disappearing, and their unique essential cultures, one per week. Songbird's song we won't be hearing. What if we could understand what they speak? Nature is beautiful wonder in so many ways, but humans deny it and ruin it so swiftly. Nature can now feel as if it's beyond us. It isn't seen by us much these days. Yeah, I know that's a bit of a sad ending, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, well. Well, I still thought that was a great poem anyway. Look who's here. Myra here. We were here. We arrived late. It's early here and our alarm didn't work, so we didn't want to interrupt the show. Thanks so much for the invitation to share the video. And there we go. It went quite well, I think. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a signal blip at the time, but it seems people heard it. So thanks for being here, Myra, and thanks for you, the family, as well, and Rodrigo especially. And we'll have you back sometime to talk about the dancing that you do, the dance work that you do. So thank you for being here. So everybody else, please subscribe below, the bell icon, both YouTube and Facebook. And be reminded of details of each next Sunday sessions if you press the bell. So that so for now, it's me telling you to wishing you a safe week full of wonder, inspirations, all the lovely enchantments from your biodiversity experiences. So until next Sunday, I hope you've enjoyed today. Play well, and it's bye from me. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.